Today marks the day that the SNES Classic Edition is releasing, and many people have no doubt already rushed out in order to secure their little piece of Nintendo history. But with only 21 games being offered, and just 20 of those games actually ever being released before on the Super Nintendo, there's definitely a handful of games that should have been included on this piece of hardware, but just weren't for whatever reason. We decided to look at 10 additional games that easily could have been included on the SNES Classic Edition, and honestly, we almost would prefer some of these titles over ones actually included. I'm Bryan from Level Down Games, and here's our top 10 games missing from the SNES Classic. The last game to ever be released on the original NES also saw a simultaneous release on the SNES, and it also happens to be our number 10 pick. Wario's Woods is a puzzle game published and developed by Nintendo, which makes it kinda strange that it's missing from the list of 21 games featured on the SNES Classic Edition. It's a traditional falling block game similar to Tetris, but the objective was to clear these blocks by using bombs and arranging them into rows of matching colors. It was rather fun, and it would have been nice to see younger generations discover this gem on the SNES Classic. Speaking of puzzle games and Tetris, for number 9, we have Tetris Attack. Developed by Intelligent Systems and published by Nintendo late in the life cycle of the Super Nintendo, this game actually released in August of 1996, right around the same time that the Nintendo 64 was about to begin entering homes. So we can rightfully understand why a lot of people may not have played this game or chose to skip over it. This version of Tetris is awesome as it features characters from the Super Mario universe, most notably from the Yoshi's Island game, which is included on the SNES Classic. If you missed out on this game back in 1996, check it out if you ever get the chance, especially if you're a Tetris fan. In at number 8 is one of LucasArts' weirdest games ever made, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, a top-down shooter that featured players going out and fighting off waves of zombies while trying to rescue people from the neighborhood in which you lived. It's definitely a more obscure release, even if it is fondly remembered and widely loved across the gaming community. Our number 7 entry is a staple on the SNES when it comes to platforming games. Earthworm Jim kept us entertained on many a weekends during lulls with other platformers such as Super Mario World. Featuring a mix of platforming elements and 2D gunplay, this was a true gem on the Super Nintendo, featuring some excellent hand-drawn animations and insane levels and visuals to work through. Did we mention you get to play as an earthworm named Jim? There's that too. With the recent success of games such as Stardew Valley, you'd think Nintendo would have wanted to include our number 6 entry, Harvest Moon. The originator of the entire franchise, this game actually released in North America after the Nintendo 64, as it hit store shelves in June of 1997. Europe wouldn't even see it until 1998. This half RPG, half farming simulator was so addicting and fun with a break from traditional gameplay elements of defeating enemies and trying to save the world. Instead, you just run a freaking farm, tend to your livestock, attend some town festivals, and just live out your life. Yes, please. For number 5, we have Super R-Type, part port of the arcade game R-Type 2, as it borrowed heavily from stages and enemies in that game, and part original, as it also introduced plenty of new things to go along with the stuff being brought over from the arcade version. A lot of the appeal to Super R-Type was how close it matched the original arcade game's stellar weapon system. It was also a very difficult game, rivaling others such as Super Ghouls and Ghosts in terms of how brutal the gameplay elements were. Maybe that's why it was left off. We can't have 2 extremely challenging games in one collection. If you ask Al Francaro which SimCity game is his favorite, he'll tell you that it's the Super Nintendo version, and for good reason. Our number 4 pick, this is widely considered one of the best SimCity games of all time. Born from the creative soul of game designer Will Wright, this game truly was the ultimate city building simulation. We cannot even begin to describe how many hours we lost trying to construct the perfect city just to watch it all get destroyed after hours of hard work. One thing a lot of people know about me is that I absolutely adore role-playing games that feature city-building elements. This whole concept started with our number 3 entry, ActRaiser, and then continued forward into other classics later seen on the PlayStation 2, such as the Dark Cloud games. This side-scrolling action RPG is often remembered as one of the greatest RPGs to come out of the Super Nintendo era, and it's insane that it was left off the SNES Classic Edition. Oh, and how could we even forget about the epicness that was the soundtrack, composed by the legendary Yuzo Koshiro. I smell some BG Mania tracks on the horizon in the future. Most Nintendo-developed games found their way onto the SNES Classic Edition, so it's really odd that our number 2 game, Pilot Wings, was completely left off of the list of 21 games. This is where the entire Pilot Wings franchise began, and set the bar for future games in the series moving forward. You had to earn a pilot license before being able to fly a number of different planes around a large area for its time. There were also missions that had players trying to land on specific targets or fly through rings, which was actually quite challenging. Seriously, if you haven't checked out Pilot Wings, you owe it to yourself. Play this game. Anyone that makes a list of games left off of the SNES Classic Edition is going to include our number 1 pick, Chrono Trigger. It is absolutely mind-boggling that this game was left off of this piece of hardware, as it is without a doubt considered the best true role-playing game to exist on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and some even consider it to be the best RPG of all time. Just listen to the fans clamoring for a full remake, or the continuation of the series after the most recent entry, Chrono Cross, on the original PlayStation. Nintendo really should have went with 22 games on the Classic Edition and had this game included. Its exclusion is baffling. And that's our list for the top 10 games missing from the SNES Classic. Did we completely forget about something else that deserves to be on this list? Let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Once you're done with that, and if you want to stay up to date on all things Level Down Games, you can follow us on Twitter at OriginalLDG, find us on Facebook, and follow us over at twitch.tv/LevelDownGames for all of our live streams. We have 3 podcasts weekly, including our video game podcast Max Level, a podcast dedicated to soundtracks and video game music known as BG Mania, and one all about the world of professional wrestling and the gorgeous lads of wrestling. Another thing we do is Game Oracles, a video game trailers show, and Bonus Stage, a minigame every Wednesday morning. We also produce reviews for the latest releases, do unboxings, reaction videos, let's plays, and so much more. All of our content can also be found over at our main home on the internet and hopefully yours as well, leveldowngames.com. Until next time, keep on gaming.